Let me check current conditions to ground this in something real. It's currently strengthening fast, folks. In today's video, I'll walk you through who can expect rounds of strong to severe storms as this system continues to deepen and pushes through the eastern half of the country. Plus, the latest on the flash flooding risk, as repeated rounds of heavy rain are going to raise the danger for a lot of the same areas that just got hammered. And if you stick around to the end, I've got a quick update on the tropics as we head deeper into what's historically the ramp up toward the peak of hurricane season. It's a busy one out there, folks, as this storm system continues to spin and strengthen over the eastern United States. Welcome in, everybody. I appreciate you joining me today. Let's go ahead and dive right into the latest information on the system, the severe weather threat it's bringing, the flooding concern layered on top of it, and then we'll wrap things up with where the tropics stand. But let's start close to home with what's actually happening right now. I'm recording this on Sunday morning, so if you're catching this later today or even into Monday, most of this is still going to apply, and I'll flag anything that's likely to shift as we go. Let's pull up satellite first so you can see exactly what we're dealing with. You can clearly see this area of low pressure that's been strengthening as it tracks across the Midwest, and it's now working its way toward the Ohio Valley. This system has been feeding on a big fetch of tropical moisture pulled up out of the Gulf, and that's exactly why it's been able to strengthen as quickly as it has. This isn't the first time we've seen a setup like this over the past week or so. If you remember, we had a very similar system move through with severe thunderstorm warnings and even a few tornado warnings mixed in, and this one is shaping up to do a lot of the same. Notice those very cold cloud tops on satellite, indicated by the brighter shading. Remember, temperature drops with height in the atmosphere. So when storms build up tall, enough to punch into the upper troposphere, they catch onto that much colder air, and that's exactly what the satellite is picking up on this morning, especially down toward the Gulf Coast of Florida and up through parts of the interior southeast. We're already seeing some very heavy rain, and a few of these storm straining, meaning they're moving over the same locations repeatedly. We've had reports of localized flooding overnight, and a couple of these cells have shown enough rotation on radar to warrant some severe thunderstorm warnings already this morning. Let's switch over to radar so you can get a clearer picture of exactly where this activity is right now. You can see the heaviest rainfall returns, stretching from the Gulf Coast of Florida northward, with additional clusters developing up toward the eastern Great Lakes. That closed low I mentioned is sitting right around the Indiana area this morning, and it's going to be the main engine driving all of this activity over the next 48 hours. All of this is going to continue working east, and today is going to be another active day with widespread afternoon showers and storms for a huge chunk of the eastern United States. Before we get further into the timing, let's talk model data, because I want to show you exactly why I think this one strengthens fast and why the official outlook might be underselling the wind threat a little bit. Let's start with the Storm Prediction Center's outlook for today, which is Sunday. Right now, we've only got a level 1 and a level 2 out, of 5 for the severe risk, mainly across the interior southeast and up into the eastern Great Lakes. But I'll be straight with you. I think that outlook could be a little conservative given what I'm seeing in some of the higher resolution guidance. There's a healthy amount of wind energy present today, along with something meteorologists call downdraft CAPE. And I want to show you exactly what that means and why it matters. Let's pull up that composite index now. This is downdraft CAPE combined with 0 to 6 kilometer shear, and this is a blended index. That looks at multiple ingredients at once to give us an idea of the straight line wind threat specifically. Downdraft CAPE is essentially a measure of how much downward momentum is available in the atmosphere, meaning how hard a storm can shove air toward the ground once it collapses. Combine that with strong wind shear through the lower atmosphere, and you've got the recipe for storms that can bring down damaging winds at the surface, even without needing to be full-blown supercells. Where you see the brighter shading on this map, that's where the ingredients are lining up best for those strong, gusty winds. Now, here's the catch with this particular index. It doesn't account for whether anything is actually falling out of the sky to bring those winds down to the surface. We know we've got plenty of rain with this system, so that box is already checked. As we move this model data forward in time through the afternoon and evening, you can see that wind threat really start to light up across the interior southeast and push up into the Ohio Valley and eastern Great Lakes. That's the reason I expect gusty to potentially damaging winds to be the headline hazard with today's storms. More so than hail or tornadoes, although neither of those is off the table entirely. Overnight tonight, that signal eases up a bit, but it doesn't go away completely, and by tomorrow afternoon we get another bump as daytime heating rebuilds the instability. At that point, the wind threat corridor shifts a little farther north and east, running from around the Tennessee Valley up into the mid-Atlantic and eventually into New England by Monday night. Let's check one more composite index real quick, the supercell composite, just to see what the tornado and large hail potential looks like. layered on top of all that straight line wind energy. Give this one a second to load in. All right, here we go. For today, there's a modest signal for supercell. Ingredients, mainly across the interior southeast where better low-level wind shear is in place. Nothing that jumps off the page, but enough that I wouldn't rule out an isolated strong storm capable of large hail or a brief tornado, especially closer to that low IMS pressure center. As we move into Monday, that supercell signal actually increases a bit as the system pushes into the mid-Atlantic and up toward New England, where stronger wind shear aloft will be in place. So while I'm not expecting a major outbreak here, I do think we need to watch the northern edge of this system closely on Monday, particularly for any storms that manage to stay discrete rather than clustering into a line. Bottom line on severe weather, I don't think this turns into some historic outbreak, but I do think the straight line wind threat from that downdraft Cape signal is going to be a bigger deal than what the official outlook currently shows. And I wouldn't be surprised to see that risk area expanded or upgraded as we get closer to peak heating this afternoon. Now let's shift over to the flooding threat, because honestly, this might end up being the bigger story out of all of this, especially for areas that have already taken a beating from rain recently. Let's pull up the excessive rainfall outlook. For today, we've got a slight risk, that's a level 2 out of 4, and it's centered over 2 areas, the Florida Big Bend region and the eastern Great Lakes. Both of these spots are sitting under that closed lows moisture feed, and both are going to see repeated rounds of heavy rain today. Anywhere from the Gulf Coast of Florida up through the mid-Atlantic and into the interior Northeast is going to see widespread showers and thunderstorms today. And given how amplified this upper level low is, some of the heights associated with it are running near record low levels for this time of year, which tells you just how strong and slow moving this feature really is. As we move into day 2, which is Monday, that excessive rainfall risk shifts eastward with the system, and I'd expect the highest flooding concern to track from around the interior Northeast down through parts of the mid-Atlantic as the heaviest rain bands catch up with the front. Remember, not every town under this outlook is going to see the same rainfall totals. Some spots are going to get absolutely hammered while a town 20 miles away barely sees anything, and that's just the nature of these training thunderstorm setups. If a cell parks over the same neighborhood for an hour, you could pick up 3, 4, even 5 inches of rain, while the surrounding area only sees an inch. Let's talk through the hour-by-hour timing so you know exactly when to be on alert. This morning, the bulk of the activity is focused across the Gulf Coast of Florida and up into the interior southeast, with scattered showers and a few storms also popping up around the eastern Great Lakes as that closed low continues to organize. By early this afternoon, as daytime heating kicks in, I expect a broader line of showers and storms to develop from around the Tennessee Valley northeastward into the Ohio Valley. And this is where I'd watch closest for those damaging wind gusts we talked about with the composite data. Any of these storms that can stay ahead of the main cluster and remain discrete will have the best shot at producing large hail or a brief tornado, especially closer to the low. By this evening, the primary batch of storms should be working through the central Appalachians and into the western mid-Atlantic, and this is typically when these systems can consolidate into more of a line, which tends to be more efficient at pushing that straight line wind threat all the way to the surface. If you've got outdoor evening plans anywhere from around Knoxville up through Roanoke and into the DC metro, keep an eye on the radar because things could turn quickly. Overnight tonight, the severe threat should start to relax a bit as instability drops off after sunset, but the rain absolutely does not stop. In fact, given how much tropical moisture this system is tapped into, I expect widespread rain to continue overnight across much of the Ohio Valley, the central Appalachians, and up into the mid-Atlantic, with some spots picking up another inch or 2 on top of what's already fallen. Moving into Monday, the system's forward motion should finally start to accelerate a little as that upper low begins to open up and get picked up by the jet stream. Through Monday, morning and into the afternoon, look for the heaviest rain and any renewed severe threat to focus across the mid-Atlantic, especially up toward the I-95 corridor, and then continuing northeast into New England by Monday evening. Boston, Hartford, up through Portland, Maine, you guys are going to want to keep an umbrella handy and be ready for a few gusty storms as this thing finally starts to wrap up and pull away. By Monday night into Tuesday, the system should finally be clearing the coast, dragging the last of the rain and storm activity out over the Atlantic. That'll open the door for a much quieter and drier stretch behind it, at least for a day or two, before we have to start watching the next disturbance work in from the west later in the week. All right, let's wrap things up with an update on the tropics, because we are getting deeper into hurricane season, and I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't at least check in on what's happening out there. Let's pull up low-level vorticity, which is one of the better tools for spotting tropical waves trying to get organized, whether that's here in the Atlantic or really anywhere in the world. Looking at the model data, there isn't a whole lot going on right now. There's a weak area of spin way out in the eastern Atlantic, much closer to the coast of Africa than to us, and the guidance shows it trying to get a little better organized over the next several days, but nothing that's screaming development just yet. The bigger issue for the tropics right now is the amount of dry air and Saharan dust spread across the basin. That dry air acts like kryptonite for these tropical waves, choking off the thunderstorm activity they need to organize and strengthen. So even though we've got a wave out there trying to spin up, I wouldn't get too worked up about it just yet. That said, all this rain and storminess we've been dealing with over the eastern United States has been pumping extra moisture off the southeast coastline. And if that weak wave manages to track far enough west to tap into that added moisture down the road, it could get a bit of a boost. Nothing locked in, nothing guaranteed, but it's the kind of setup worth keeping an eye on as we go through the week. And I'll keep you posted if the probabilities start to climb. Remember too, the seasonal outlook for this year has been trending toward a below normal Atlantic season overall, with a lot of that tied to how the atmosphere is behaving both here in the basin and out ahead of it. That doesn't mean we're in the clear, it just means the overall numbers are expected to run a bit lower than a typical year. Doesn't take much though. It only takes one storm hitting your area to make it a bad year for you personally, so don't let a quiet basin lull you into skipping your hurricane prep this season. All right, folks, here are your endpoints for today. This storm system is going to keep bringing widespread rain and storms to a huge chunk of the eastern United States. Through Monday, that much we've made pretty clear throughout this whole video. Scattered to numerous strong to severe storms are likely today and into Monday, with damaging straight-line winds standing out as the top concern based on that downdraft Cape signal we walked through, and I wouldn't be shocked if the official risk areas get bumped up as we get further into the afternoon. Heavy rain is going to lead to flash flooding concerns, especially across the Florida, Big Bend, and the eastern Great Lakes today, then shifting into the mid-Atlantic and interior Northeast by Monday. And out in the tropics, nothing imminent, but there is a wave worth watching as we move deeper into the week. If this video helped you plan out your Sunday and your Monday, go ahead and give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. That stuff genuinely helps me get these forecasts out to more people who need them, and I appreciate every single one of you who takes the time to do that. I also just want to say thank you again for all the support over the last little while. It means a lot more than you probably realize to have people show up day after day and trust me with their forecast. I don't take that lightly, and I'm going to keep doing my best to break these systems down for you in a way that actually makes sense and actually helps you plan your week. That's all I've got for you today. Stay weather aware out there these next couple of days. Keep that umbrella handy. If you're in any of those areas we talked about for the wind threat this afternoon, have a way to get warnings and a plan for where you'll go if things get rough. I'll see you all in the next video with another update as the system continues to move through. Have a great rest of your weekend and stay safe.